Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is Paul, the Nature Wanderer, and today I am in the wilds of Orchard Park. I am actually on the Erie Cattaraugus Rail Trail. I did an episode about rail trails just last week, and I love it here. This is a great trail, and so I wanted to talk a little bit more. While I was on this trail, I want to do another episode while I'm on this trail. I may do other episodes on here too. Not about the rail trail this time. It's just such a nice trail. I want to get out and hike, and it was a good opportunity for me to talk about my next topic, which is garlic mustard. Ooh, garlic mustard. This is actually a suggestion by a listener, and asked not to give their name, so do have permission to use the first name, Bev. Thank you. So she wanted to learn about garlic mustard, because she asked, what is this stuff in my backyard? And I said, oh, okay, that's garlic mustard. I wanted to talk a little bit about it and tell her about it, and but I just said, let's do an episode on it, because a lot of people find it in their yard and they don't understand what it is. So you may have these plants growing in your backyard, especially if you have a wooded area. They love the woods, but you will find them in a lot of different habitats. It's very universal as to where it wants to grow. It's an introduced, just so that you know. It's an introduced. Some people call it a weed. I hate that word. To me, a weed is something that's unwanted, which, yeah, most people, it is unwanted, and I'm included in that. It really does not belong here. It's an invasive, so we do want to get rid of it. So I guess if you want to call it a weed, it's a weed, but I just don't like that term. That's just me. My preference is just to call it a plant. But garlic mustard. The scientific name, because I always like to give a scientific name, even if I'm not the greatest at pronouncing these. I'm getting better. I'm still looking for a course where I can take. If you know of a course on pronunciation of scientific names, let me know. I'd love to take it. Anyhow, the scientific name for garlic mustard, Aliaria petiolata. And I think I did pretty good on that one. Aliaria petiolata. So garlic mustard, also known as hedge garlic, sauce alone, jack by the hedge, poor man's mustard. How about jack in the bush, or garlic root, garlic wort, or mustard root? It has so many different names, but the one that I know it the best by is garlic mustard. That's what I've always called it. So what does garlic mustard look like? Well, essentially it's a 2-year cycle plant. Okay, we call it biennial. So it has a 2-year life cycle. It looks different each year. So I'm going to describe what the first year and the second year looks like, just so that you know whether that's what you're looking at in your yard. The first year, okay, so the first year, it's a short plant. Doesn't get very tall. It's got dark green, kidney-shaped leaves and a smooth stem. Now the second year, okay, it dies off in the winter time and it comes back the second year. The second year, it actually has triangular, heart-shaped leaves, and they are toothed edges on it, and they're about 3 to 4 feet tall. Now they have 4 petaled flowers. They're white in color, little flowers, they're not very big. Like I said, it is a little bit taller the second year and it gets these flowers, but the flowers are rather small on it. They're not really huge flowers. Where's the name come from, garlic mustard? Well, it is in the mustard family. Okay, that's why sometimes it's called mustard root. Okay, so the mustard family, and if you take the leaves and you rub them or crush them, rub them between your fingers, sometimes I can just go up to it and smell it, but it smells like garlic. It has this garlic-like odor to it. So that's garlic mustard. That's why it got that name. And that's what it looks like. So I'm sure you have seen it. The problem with it is that it's an introduced species. So it was introduced in the 1800s. The first time it was discovered was on Long Island in 1868. That's the first time it was discovered in the U.S. We don't know exactly where it was introduced, but it may have been introduced by early Europeans from Europe, different European countries, and there have been records of early Europeans using garlic mustard. They would use it as medicine. So it had herbal uses, and sometimes they used it as erosion control too. And they'd use it for food. So usually for giving flavor to food, so your flavoring, your spices. That's why they started cultivating it. So they brought it from Europe. Europeans, when they first came to this country, they actually introduced a lot of species to this country that shouldn't be here. Now today, garlic mustard is actually found in all but 9 states in the U.S. So just about every state has it somewhere in the state. It's mostly in the northeastern U.S. So like all of New York State, all of Ohio, so the northeastern states, very prominent. But if you go to some of the other states, you will find it there. So all but 9 states, and those are mostly southwestern states that don't have it. But it's, like I said, it's invasive. It does spread quite easily, which is the big problem. Okay, so I am using 2 different terms here, non-native versus invasive, introduced. I'm using all these different terms. Let me explain them a little bit. Introduced, term I've used already with this plant. Introduced means it came here from another place. So you introduced it to the United States. Like I said, this one from Europe, a lot of plants from Europe. Sometimes from Asia, other countries, but it was introduced to the United States. Now, that makes it non-native. Okay, native plant has always been here. It started here, okay, or it was here long before people were. So that is a native plant. It belongs here. So a non-native means it doesn't belong here. It was introduced. So you can use non-native and introduced interchangeably because it was introduced. Most people say introduced means it came from humans. Okay, humans introduced it to the earth. But sometimes it's birds, sometimes it's animals, sometimes the wind, it depends how it was introduced. But some people say just by humans, but no. I always say, by any means it was introduced to the area. Non-native, you can use the words interchangeably. So what's this invasive thing that I keep bringing up every once in a while? Well, some non-natives are not invasive. Okay, some introduced species. Plantain. Okay, plantain grows in pretty much everyone's yard. It's introduced. It's a non-native. It was brought over from Europe. Plantago, sole of the foot, because it looks like the sole of the foot. Native Americans called it white man's foot, because wherever the white man walked, plantain was sure to follow. But anyhow, we're not talking about plantain right now. It's just, that's one of the introduced species that is not invasive. Okay, yet you have other plants that were introduced here, and when they're introduced, they do harm. Okay, they take over an area, they push out the native species. That's what we call invasive. Okay, so an invasive plant is basically a plant that is harmful to other plants or harmful to the general ecosystem of that area. So that's the terminology I have been using and will keep using throughout the rest of this episode. And so invasive, a plant that harms. Garlic mustard, how can that harm? It's just a little plant. Actually, as I'm walking along the trail here, I'm seeing a lot of garlic mustard along the way here, both first year and second year. So it grows everywhere. I used to, in my old house, I had it in the woods in several spots. I was always pulling it up, which I'll talk about that in a little while, how to get rid of this invasive non-native. So yeah, invasive does harm. How can garlic mustard do harm? Well, it spreads easily. Okay, the seed pods, they will spread very easily. And so when they are spreading, they crowd out and push out the native species. So you'll have garlic mustard taking over. It actually will shoot up higher sometimes than, the flora on the floor of the forest, and it pushes them out. So the seeds, they don't spread. I mean, you will see, in my research, I saw some sources saying, oh yeah, the seeds are spread by the wind, and most sources I read, though, not spread by the wind. Okay, it can be, but usually not spread by the wind. The seeds are actually spread because of us, humans. Okay, you get it as you're walking. That's why I always say stay on the trail. Okay, if you're walking off the trail, you're getting stuff stuck in your shoes, especially if they're muddy. Everything sticks to the mud. So muddy human boots, sometimes they get in your pant cuff, and then you carry it to a new area and they drop off there. Sometimes pets, okay, the pet goes up, sniffs the plant, seeds fall on in its fur. When it's cleaning itself, the plants, the seeds will, drop off and be planted in a new location. So people, pets, yeah, we're the ones spreading it. Sometimes wildlife too. I mean, they're up at the plants and they're going along. Roadside mowing, they're mowing and they're shooting these seeds quite a distance. Yeah, so they spread that way too. So cars with muddy tires, they pull off the road and get the seeds stuck in their tires, and then it's spread somewhere else. So usually not by wind, it's usually human caused spreading. So they can spread. If there's no humans around, they're still going to spread a little bit, but not as far. Okay, they'll go a little bit each year, but it can take over. It really can. One plant, a single mustard plant, can produce up to 5,000 seeds, and they remain viable in the soil up to 7 years. Not an easy plant to eradicate. No, these seeds, you think, oh, good, I pulled it all up, we're good. No, they're going to come up the next year because those seeds are viable for 7 years in the soil. They bloom every spring before the native species, which is not good because then they're blocking the sunlight, preventing the native species from getting any stronghold. So they're blocking the sunlight. The native species don't get that sunlight. They come up early. They also steal the nutrients out of the soil. So they're growing early. They're grabbing those nutrients out of the soil, and there's no nutrients left for the other plants to grow. So like I said, it really pushes them out. It's threatening the biodiversity of an area. So when you have garlic mustard in an area, it really takes a toll on the biodiversity, on the ecosystem of that area. So that's why it's not good at all. There's another problem with garlic mustard. I mean, I already knew a lot of invasives do this. They push out the other species. But there is another problem with garlic mustard, and that's, well, the roots. The roots are actually releasing chemicals which alter the soil. It alters the soil, preventing other plants from growing. It actually, I don't know if you can hear him, I got a cat bird along the trail here. He wants to be part of the podcast. That's fine, I love when they are. So anyhow, they change the network of the fungi that connects the nutrients in the soil, and so the nutrients aren't being dispersed to the other plants, and it will essentially stunt the growth of these other plants. So the chemicals in the soil that are being released from the garlic mustard roots are stunting the growth of these other plants, the native species. Okay, so when the plant dies, the nutrient-rich leaves of the garlic mustard, they will accelerate decomposition of leaf litter. What's leaf litter good for? Don't you want to get rid of that leaf litter quickly? That sounds like it's awesome. Well, no. That leaf litter that's decaying slowly is slowly releasing nutrients into the soil for the other plants to grow. So with them decomposing so rapidly, it's changing the natural decomposition cycle, which is harming the native species. Now, in an area you may say, well, yeah, it's just a few plants here, but no one's disturbing it. It's off the beaten path, so it's not going to spread quickly. Well, actually, they have found that it only takes 5 to 7 years to establish as a dominant species on the forest floor. 5 to 7 years, and it could take out all the native species in the forest. So it doesn't take that long. Now, a lot of negative stuff about garlic mustard, and some people will argue with me and say, it's not that bad a plant, I use it in cooking. And yeah, so I will, so I always like to look at both sides of things, but I always try to look at the positive and the negative. It is edible. Okay, there are dozens of recipes on the internet. I was looking them up and seeing, well, do people really use this stuff? And yeah, I found dozens of recipes for using garlic mustard. You can eat the young plants. And some of the recipes I was finding was seasoning for dips, sauces, salads. Those are really, I actually thought it sounded good. Pesto, yeah, good pesto recipe using garlic mustard. Older plants, not so much. Remember, it's a 2-year plant. You want those younger plants, get them as early in the spring as possible if you are going to use them. The older plants are more bitter, and they really need to be boiled before eating because it does contain cyanide. There's a lot of plants out here that contain cyanide. So you don't want to eat a lot of them. The larger plants here, are they going to kill you? Probably not. Okay, but they can make you sick. So always boil on older plants just to make sure. I don't want anyone getting sick on me. I don't like talking about edible plants for that reason. But anyhow, it is edible. Look online, find the recipes. Always use caution whenever eating or using any plant for anything. Now, because garlic mustard isn't invasive, if you have it in your yard, you probably want to get rid of it, but it's not easy. So let me tell you how. Okay, so how do you stop garlic mustard? Well, usually takes 2 to 5 years. Because remember, those seeds are viable in the soil for up to 7 years. But usually if you can keep after it, depends on the seed bank, how many seeds are in the soil already, how many seeds are getting into the soil. usually 2 to 5 years, and you can deplete the seed bank. And that way, it will disappear, but it takes a while. Always pull up plants. Make sure you get the roots, okay, but pull up the plants before they start producing the seeds. Otherwise, while you're pulling it up, you're shaking that plant and the seeds are coming off and they're getting planted. So get it early before the seeds start to, before it goes to seed, I should say. Pull it up and make sure you are careful to get the entire root. Make sure that you bag it up, yes. Don't just toss it in the compost pile. Don't just toss it in the pile in the woods, because it will regrow. Yeah, it will germinate. So what you want to do is you want to pull the plant up before they produce the seeds. You want to make sure that you get all the roots, and you want to put it into a plastic bag. Put it in a plastic bag, throw it in the garbage. Okay, throw it in the garbage. That's the only way to get rid of it. You can burn it too. Okay, so if you're having a campfire, pull up your garlic mustard, keep it in the plastic bag until you start the fire. Don't put the plastic bag on the fire. All those chemicals being released. No, that's not good. But don't compost them. Burn them without the plastic bag, or just throw them in the garbage. Now, the best time to do this, like I said, early spring, but also try doing it after rainfall, when the soil is nice and moist and it's soft, and that way you can, pull it up much easier, and that way you're not shaking the plants as much as well, just in case there are some seeds on there. So keep after it though. You see some coming up, keep doing it. Keep pulling it up. If you're the type who's like, I'm not going to spend 2 to 5 years, well, you're not going to get rid of it. Okay, you're not going to get rid of it. You have to be consistent. You have to be persistent. You have to keep doing it for, it could be up to 5, 7 years that you're pulling the stuff up, but eventually it will be gone. Don't reintroduce it either. Okay, like I said, when you're doing hikes, stay on the trail. Don't go off the trail, because that's how a lot of non-natives, a lot of invasives end up getting stuck on our clothing, on our shoes, and they get reintroduced. So that's about all I have to say about garlic mustard. Invasive, not good, but you will see it around. If you want to use it for cooking, fine, get the younger plants, and make sure you pull up the whole thing and throw it out, because you don't want to use it again. It will spread. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please rate and review. Don't forget to check out the show notes. Support the podcast. As usual, all the information is in the show notes. You can buy nature journals, buy Nature Wanderer merchandise, or just make a donation through my Ko-Fi page. Really helps. Thanks, and share the episode. And above all, don't forget, keep exploring the nature around you. Have a great day, everybody.
Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.